Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Witch Watch Season 1, Episode 19. Great episode, a lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, this episode opened with Nemu and Morihito, because Morihito is still, I think, just putting away some of the stuff he uncovered at the end of last episode, because apparently, all of that happened basically yesterday. And so he's like, hey, I kind of went through some stuff as I unearthed some stuff from the past, and that kind of led to a tough day situation. But a letter falls out of it, and it's a letter from Nico from when they were younger, and it says to Morihito or Moi, I'll always be your friend. And he holds it very dear. He says he kept that on his wall for 5 years because outside of Nico growing up, he didn't have any friends. Nico was the first friend, and obviously when she moved away, he kind of had no friends at all. And so when Nemu presents this to the entire group, it means the world to Nico, because she had no idea he kept it all those years. In fact, she never knew that he ended up piecing it back together. But basically, it's from when he was younger, because at the same time, this day revolves around Morihito going to his mom's grave. I was under the assumption maybe we'd get a little bit more about Morihito's mom in this episode. That's not the case at all. But to be fair, it's the parents are important, but they're not ever going to be in a situation where we fully get to dive into their past. Even Kara's mom, we didn't really dive into who she was personality wise all that much, but we just kind of got to know her a little bit as a person. Same thing for everyone else's parents. Because they're not the focus of the story. They play their respective roles in being influential on how, obviously, their kids turn out. Obviously, you can make the argument Nico's mom is the closest to, being the most important parent just because of, Ibuki's, premonitions of the future and stuff that are so key to all of this, to protecting Nico. But, tangent to not, well, tangent, but it's still relevant. But like I said, I just thought we'd get more, but we just got to know she was a very sweet person, and it seemed like she was sick, and that played into why Morihito never let his mom know, because he was worried if my mom knows and worries that I don't have any friends, he was I was scared that would kind of affect your health negatively, so I always lied to you and said oh yeah, I have friends, I'm always hanging out with them, I was just playing with them today. But it just, yeah, he beat up someone that I guess wasn't nice to him, and obviously it scared other people away, so he was isolated. But then Nico, doing, even from a very young age, kind of screwing up a little bit with her spells, they still had a lot of fun together. And some kids who did not like Morihito were yo, Nico, you should hang out with us instead of him. But Nico was no, Morihito's my friend, I like hanging out with him more, he's way more fun. And it led to this interesting conversation where Morihito was trying to say, right, if you, you probably don't want to, be friends with me, because Morihito sees how people view him, and he's I don't want you to get dragged into that as well, or suffer being ostracized the same way I have. But she says, you need to be careful of, was it Kotodama, I believe it is? Basically, she's words have power, essentially, in a more magical sense. It's also the thing of you put that energy out there in the universal return. So you keep saying you don't need friends, it's going to lead to that. And ironically enough, sadly, it does lead to a situation of he didn't have any friends for a long time, until Nico came back into his life. And so her wanting to make sure that, taking that and applying that, especially witches' words can have such power, she ended up writing down I will always be your friend, and she poured a lot of energy, and her magic was coming into it. I thought it's interesting because at first I was well, she already had her magic, but I was wondering if this one was the first real big magical thing she's ever done, because she poured so much of her emotions into it. So I was wondering if something bad was going to come about it, and you could make the argument, yes, but we'll get to that later. But those bullies come over and they rip it up, and Nico kind of goes a little dark side for a moment, and she uses her power on them, because she was so frustrated, because it's just how dare you do that? And Morihito had to come and stop her from doing that. But like I said, he eventually found that letter, and he taped it all together. And now, Morihito can proudly say to his mom, I don't have to lie anymore. I do have friends. The fact is that I have a lot of people in my life. And obviously Nico is kind of explaining that to other people too, that Morihito hasn't always, he's always kind of had his guard up around people. It's never been easy, and it still isn't always easy for him to tell people how he felt. But the problem is, but the good thing is that he's let his guard down more and more, and because obviously they all have like this commonality of being different, and I think that ends up helping. But it hasn't stopped there. Even though he's got, he's living with all these people who are his friends, he's also made a lot of friends at school. School is so much fun to him now too, so it has slowly broken down that barrier. And it is a really sweet thing to know. And then you have Morihito being like, Nico is my best friend, and she walks away the most brokenhearted because she's thinking about the first time, like at the beginning of the series when they reunited. She was so like ready for it. It's like, oh my god, we're totally going to get married, we're reunited, it's going to be love is in the air. But then she was like, no, there was nothing but darkness in his eyes. The fact is there was kind of no love, and I've just been friend zoned, and she's kind of been stuck with that the entire time because she knows how she feels. It's so obvious. I mean, when she saw the letter from Morihito that he kept it, she's like, oh my god, like she's like, oh, I'm sorry, the love I have for Morihito is pouring out of me. But it's like, that is funny how that's just so easy for her when he's not around, understandably, but still. And for her, she's beating herself up, being like, oh, why can't things be different? Like, she's just kind of sad that things are stuck the way they are. She even makes reference to a movie called Whisper of the Heart. I'm out of curiosity, like a lot of stuff from this. I looked into it. It's originally a manga, but it's based off of a that Whisper of the Heart is a Studio Ghibli film. I'm sure that's specifically what she referenced, but she could have been referencing the original manga as well. Which that actually kind of got me thinking, just a real quick Studio Ghibli, or Ghibli, depending on how the proper pronunciation for it. There's actually a sad thing associated with that. I won't go into it because why get depressing, but just I highly recommend looking into the film if you want to do some Googling. It's a really sad thing I learned upon finding out about that movie. But either way, the thing I was going to bring up, Studio Ghibli and Ghibli-wise, is like, I've actually only ever seen two, partially three Studio Ghibli films. Princess Mononoke is my all-time favorite. I've always said, like, I believe Princess Mononoke is my all-time favorite movie. Then there's also Howl's Moving Castle. I've only seen like maybe twice all the way through. I did not originally like it, but that's only because I'm like, well, it's not Princess Mononoke. But the second time I liked it, I was like, what the hell am I talking about? This is a great movie. So that, and I've only seen bits and pieces of Spirited Away. So, I've always wanted to kind of run through like Studio Ghibli / Ghibli's filmography at some point in time. But, I'm not the biggest movie person. But I'm going on a massive tangent, like I said, but I just wanted to kind of include that since that came up conversation-wise. But yeah, outside of that reference, this is where the episode takes not really a dark turn, but there ends up being this interesting darker undertone that I wasn't expecting to be a kind of a twist to this episode. Is Nemu, like, listening to this whole thing, she's like, wait, like, Nico's words and her magic, she's actually thinking the reason why Morihito is the way he is, like why like there hasn't been any budge, like why he's so like locked in friendship wise with her, is because inadvertently Nico might have cursed him. Basically, because it's like, basically the byproduct of it is like there had to be certain conditions met to kind of do this, but the condition ended up being applied and activated because Morihito stared at it at his wall. He had it on his wall and he stared at it for 5 years. So basically it kind of created this curse in his head where she is his friend. So kind of going back to the words have power, like inadvertently Nico kind of cursed him in a way. And Nemu's trying to decide, like, well, what do I do in this situation with this knowledge? So she waits till Nico leaves with Miharu to go shopping, and left like Kan and Keigo there, and she explains everything. So it's like, oh, well, all we have to do is have Nico break the curse, and then they're gonna be happily ever after, yay! And then she's like, no, it's not gonna work like that, because if Nico finds out what she did, because what she did, even though it was unintentional, it's still kind of a taboo thing that she inadvertently did. So we can't let Nico find out, because if she does, she'll basically spiral and have this anxiety knowing that she accidentally did this to Morihito. And obviously the anxiety and, that negativity can tip a witch from the good path down the bad path, so we don't want to do that. It's like, well, then we can just let Morihito know, but it's like, well, then there's the fear that maybe this whole thing will cause issues and make it so that whatever feelings Morihito ever could have developed for Nico might get compromised, and then he might also like go and tell Nico this, so it becomes a thing of they can't tell him either. So it's like, how do we handle this situation? It's like, well, we're at a stalemate. But for Nemu, it's like, no, Nico is so kind and she's made it so easy to befriend her that I want to do whatever I can to help her in this situation. So the way she looks at it is like, right, we got to put Morihito in a situation where his feelings for her can, basically the way she looks at it, and they kind of show a diagram of it. There's Morihito's heart, and here's the curse of friendship, and all she has to do is like, they have to like try and get that love. If they could get that love to pour like that, the power of that friendship, it can destroy that barrier and fill his heart with love. Once again, it's kind of like obviously a very magical metaphor for it, but kind of overcoming a deep friendship. Not necessarily being friend zoned, but it's also just someone like it never crossing someone's mind. I don't think that's necessarily friend zoning someone. It's just like when it doesn't even cross your mind, like, holy crap, this person might like me. Once again, I remember being young in that situation where someone had to point out, like, oh, she likes you, right? I'm like, what? No, she doesn't. It's like sometimes you're so blind to that stuff because Morihito spent so much time dedicating himself to burying his emotions. This curse kind of acted as like, I don't know, buffer would be the right word, but the catalyst for that to some extent. Especially because like their last conversation before they went their separate ways was, we got to train up. You control your magic powers and me being able to control my ogre powers, and then we kind of meet up again. Once again, Nico had to, envision in her head, like, oh my God, once we're reunited, we can be together and it's going to be love, rekindled and stuff, and didn't necessarily play out that way. I even love that while they're having this conversation, Nico comes in at the tail end of it being like, oh my God, I can't believe you'd have this conversation about romance without me being here. But it's like, wants to kind of be a part of things, and Khan being so terrible of a liar that he's like, oh yeah, we were just talking, about, Morihito's love for you and stuff. It's like, yeah, man, and it's almost like he'd be cursed or something. I mean, no, I just, it's like, oh my God, dude, get it together. It's like, oh, if only there was a spell that could let us see how he really feels. And I think the spell she ends up referencing this episode is the spell they used on him a couple episodes back, where it's like a little chibi version of himself on top of his head, kind of showing you how he's feeling. But basically this time it's like in the form of a plant. And when it grows out of your head, whatever sprouts from it represents like this, is representative of your relationship with the person you're staring at. So in Nico's case, she stares at a picture of Morihito. It becomes like this giant blossoming flower. Pretty clear. Then there's how Khan feels about Nico, and it's like two, I think, was it bees like flying around each other and being like, oh, it's them having fun. The next one was, I believe it's Nemu and Nico, where Nemu, it was a dragonfly situation. And then like Nemu and Nico is a ladybug situation, to the point that like, yo, can we cut out like this weird, like, why are these manifesting in such a weird way? Like there's such a deep like metaphor, like it's not so clear. It's such weird examples in the form of bugs to represent the relationships. It's like, oh, we could do it for Nemu and figure out how she feels about Keigo, and she's like, no, that's embarrassing, I don't want to do that, and Keigo even blushes himself. It's probably a complicated thing because she probably definitely likes both sides of Keigo, both Keigo and Wolf, I think. Especially, was that last episode that they got closer, or maybe the episode, no, it was like the episode before that, I believe. I think that's like, so, because I was curious whether or not the Nemu's fascination with Morihito was going to be a continuous thing in the story, and it seems like it's not, because like I think Keigo slash Wolf have kind of filled that void, but there'll probably be moments in the future where she feels a little bit of a flutter, but she's such a like, yo, I want Nico and Morihito to be a thing so much that like I'm gonna flutter a little bit, but I'm gonna try and push that to be more of a thing. Try to be supportive in that regard. But either way, when Morihito shows up, they try to like, hey, let's get him in front of looking at Nico, and Nico will be behind him and casting a spell. It's like, and Khan is just so terrible. He's like, oh my god, Morihito, look at this photo. It just took a Nico is like, okay, well, just keep staring at it, just keep staring at it. And when the plant arises, they're like, okay, what's going on here? And it ends up just being a caterpillar circling around a caterpillar. And for her, Nico got a little disheartened because she's like, oh, it's just kind of like the unending friendship, kind of like, oh, this is how things are always going to be. It's never going to be more. But it's not until Morihito sees the letter and she's like, oh yeah, like it means a lot to me that you piece this together. And in that moment, something strikes. And eventually it goes from just being a caterpillar into it blossoming into not only a butterfly, but into a giant, essentially a flower. So it's just kind of like, right, I guess kind of being metaphorical for his feelings for her have grown. It has like finally like knocked over the edge. I think it's already been inkling there how he's been feeling about her little by little. So I guess you could make the argument that even if it was a curse situation, even if that was real, we've kind of like we've hit that overflow that Nemu was hoping that would happen, and we kind of broke down that curse, so it's not a thing anymore. So it is very beautiful to look at, and obviously Morihito is unaware of like what's going on, what's happening yet again, because he was completely unaware of what was happening above his head anyway. But I think for Nico, she needed this to know like, oh, how you really feel, because he's not good at conveying his feelings, and to kind of put that, that's obviously a journey she had to deal with too, of learning like, oh, he is becoming a lot more comfortable about his feelings, but specifically, how does he feel about me romantically, and knowing like, oh, those feelings are there and blossoming. He might not always be able to display them, but they're there. And everyone's like, right, we'll keep watch over them as we, these two continue on their journey. And then the episode ending with Miharu being like, I wish I could have seen it too, but sadly he was inside napping at the time, so he missed it. So very, very cute ending to the episode. Like I said, there's a little bit of a darker undertone because of the curse thing. I was like, oh, that's a dark implication, but all's well that ends well type of situation. So very, very interesting developments all around. I'm excited to see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.